They thought they could shut him down. No law degree, no license, no connections. So when the city prosecutor filed a motion against Dwayne Johnson, accusing him of unauthorized practice of law, they thought it would be an open and shut case. But they forgot one thing. Dwayne had spent every night learning the rules they thought he couldn't understand. And this time, he was ready to flip the entire courtroom on its head. It started with a knock on the door. A uniformed officer. Hand-delivered letter. No arrest. Just a stern warning. "You've been served," the officer said. Dwayne opened the envelope. Cease and desist. He was being accused of practicing law without a license under State Statute 18-120, a Class A misdemeanor. The penalty? Fines. Jail time. A permanent mark on his record. The message was clear. Stay in your place. But Dwayne just stared at the letter and cracked a slight smile. "You want a fight?" he said. "Then let's go to court." Most people would have folded right there, but not Dwayne, because this wasn't just about him anymore. It was about every person who ever walked into a courtroom feeling powerless. It was about every time someone told him he wasn't qualified to understand his own rights. He wasn't backing down. He started researching the very statute they used against him. And deep in the footnotes of a court opinion from 1979, he found something strange. Advice rendered in a non-commercial, non-compensated manner, without legal representation, is not considered unauthorized practice of law under limited personal consultation. That single line, it changed everything, because Dwayne had never charged a dime, never filed a motion for someone else, never stood as counsel. He simply sat beside people and helped them understand what was being thrown at them. That wasn't illegal. That was empowerment. The court date was set. It was a small municipal courtroom, bare walls, buzzing lights, cheap carpet, but the air inside? Heavy with tension. The prosecutor came in smirking. Dwayne sat in the back, calm as ever. Button-down shirt, folder in hand, highlighted notes poking from the edges. The bailiff called the case. City of Chicago versus Dwayne Johnson. The room fell silent. The judge, skeptical, raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Johnson," she asked, "are you aware of the charges?" "I am, Your Honor." "Do you understand the risk you're taking by representing yourself?" "Yes, ma'am, I do." The prosecutor stood. "Your Honor, this individual has been dispensing legal advice across the city. He's caused confusion in multiple cases and operates outside the scope of law." Dwayne stood next. "Your Honor, I've never filed on behalf of anyone, never charged anyone, never stood as counsel. I only explained the law using publicly available information. That's called speech. And last I checked, speech ain't a crime." The judge blinked. Murmurs rippled through the gallery. But then Dwayne dropped the bomb. He pulled out a document, State versus Ralston, 1979, and handed it to the bailiff. "Precedent," he said, "plain as day." The prosecutor tried to object, tried to confuse the issue. But Dwayne kept his cool. He calmly pointed out that the city's case rested not on harm, but on intimidation. "This isn't about legality," he said. "This is about power." And then he read from a Supreme Court decision. The right to receive information and disseminate it, especially concerning legal rights, is protected under the First Amendment. He paused. "I didn't break the law," he said. "I used it." The judge sat back, quiet for nearly a full minute. Then she dropped the gavel. "Case dismissed. No fine, No warning, no jail time, just silence. Then a slow, quiet clap from the back of the room. It was Ms. Carter. She wasn't alone. More than a dozen people had come to support Dwayne. People he'd helped. People who once felt powerless, until he gave them back their voices. After the ruling, the prosecutor stormed out. But Dwayne, he stood in that courtroom. No celebration, no speech, just a soft thank you to the judge and a nod to the people. Because he knew this win wasn't just his. It was a crack in the wall. And through that crack, truth was pouring in. Outside, reporters finally showed up. One asked, "Are you planning to become a lawyer now?" Dwayne chuckled. "I don't need a title to serve my people." Another asked, "What would you tell someone who's afraid to fight back?" He paused, then said, "You don't need to be a lawyer to understand your rights. You just need to be willing to read what they hoped you'd ignore." That quote, it went viral. The video clip racked up 2 million views in under a week. But Dwayne didn't care about going viral. He cared about the next fight. Because behind that courtroom win was a storm coming. A real estate firm, backed by a city councilman, was trying to bulldoze an entire block in his neighborhood. Families were being pushed out. Rent hiked overnight. Condemned notices appearing out of nowhere. And when Dwayne started looking into it, he found something chilling. They were using fake inspection reports to seize homes. The corruption ran deeper than he ever imagined. And now, they were targeting his block, his neighbors, his childhood home, his own mother. The courtroom was just the beginning. The next fight would take everything he had. They came for his block in the dead of night. City trucks, bright orange condemned signs, an official notice stapled to the front of his mother's door. This structure is unsafe, scheduled for demolition. No hearing, no inspection, no warning. This time, they weren't just testing Dwayne Johnson's legal mind, they were testing his soul. And what they didn't know? They just picked a fight with the wrong neighborhood. It all started with a development project. $82 million in funding, luxury condos, bike trails, coffee shops. All of it dropped like a bomb on Dwayne's block. To the city, it was revitalization. To the people who lived there, it was erasure. Neighbors were served overnight notices claiming their homes were unfit for habitation. But when they tried to appeal, the offices were mysteriously closed. Phone lines disconnected, emails unanswered. It was intentional confusion. By the time they came for Dwayne's block, at least 12 families had already left. Some took buyouts, others just disappeared. The city was moving fast and quiet until they touched the wrong house. Dwayne's house. The one his grandfather built in 1956 with his own hands. When his mother called, panicked, Dwayne dropped everything. "Don't sign anything," he told her. "I'm on my way." He got there within 30 minutes. Already, men in reflective vests were circling the property like vultures. He pulled out his phone, started recording, and then, with fire in his voice, said, "Show me the inspection report." They couldn't, because it didn't exist. And within 24 hours, Dwayne had proof. The condemnation paperwork was stamped with the signature of an inspector who, get this, had been dead for 3 months. Dead. They were using a ghost's signature to steal homes. That was the final straw. Dwayne filed an emergency injunction. He worked through the night, pulling zoning laws, environmental codes, and permit records. He didn't sleep, didn't eat. He wasn't just trying to win a case. He was trying to save a community. And when the court date came, it wasn't just Dwayne standing there anymore. The entire block showed up. Mothers, grandfathers, kids in backpacks. Even a few former landlords and store owners he'd once beaten in court. Everyone stood behind him, because when he spoke, they knew he was speaking for all of them. In court, the city's lawyer tried to paint the project as progress. These neighborhoods are outdated. This project brings investment. But Dwayne stood and delivered a line that would echo through the city. You don't invest by removing people. You invest by respecting them. He presented the forged documents. He showed the illegal signatures. He laid out 14 violations in the city's zoning process, each one backed by evidence, each one met with gasps from the courtroom. At one point, the judge leaned forward and said, "Mr. Johnson, you're not a lawyer?" "No, Your Honor." The judge paused. "Well, you sure argue like one." By the end of the hearing, the courtroom was stunned. The city attorney was red-faced. The inspector's office issued a statement. And the judge? He granted a full freeze on the demolition project, effective immediately. Dwayne didn't celebrate. He didn't grandstand. He simply turned to his mother, gave her a hug, and whispered, "We ain't going nowhere." That night, something amazing happened. The local news ran the story, but it didn't stop there. National outlets picked it up. Self-taught man defends entire neighborhood in court and wins. The genius legal mind with no degree. The courtroom Robin Hood. He started getting calls from law professors, civil rights groups, even public defenders wanting his help to train their staff on how he explains law in plain English. But what Dwayne did next? He turned it back to the people. He opened a small community legal center, free of charge. No suits, no lawyers speak, just folding chairs, free coffee, and knowledge that saves lives. He called it the People's Briefing Room. Every week, he taught people how to read their leases, understand court notices, appeal traffic tickets, stand up to harassment. One by one, he lit fires in people's minds. He didn't build an empire. He built a movement. And in the end, Dwayne Johnson proved something powerful. You don't need a degree to be a genius. You don't need a badge to fight for justice. You just need the courage to learn and the heart to care. If this story moved you, share it. Comment, "Keep fighting," if you believe knowledge is power. And subscribe for more stories they don't want us to know. Because out there, there's a Dwayne Johnson in every city. And if we shine the light long enough, they'll never be able to shut it off.